welcome back for another episode / video. Today we are doing DIY as promised.
Yes, we promised you guys some content about some things we've been doing in our house. As some of you may know, we not that long ago bought a house that needed a lot of love. It was a little scary when we moved in. So we've got some room makeovers that are gonna come in the future, a house tour coming in the future. But today's video is actually about Curtis doing our door moldings in our whole house. He did a fantastic job of finding a budget-friendly way of doing it, but they still look super clean, super modern. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you guys want to see next as far as DIY stuff in our house, and make sure you hit that bell notification. That way you guys don't miss out on any new content.
Alright guys, so let me show you exactly what we're using today. Some really simple stuff. A lot of it can be found at a regular hardware store, a Lowe's, Home Depot. Everything here is pretty cheap and inexpensive. What we have first off is 1x4 pine. Now this is not like your regular cheap 1x4. It's not really expensive high grade. It's right in the middle. This is select pine 1x4. So it's actually 1/2 inch by 3.5 inches. It's not a real 1x4. Next is a 1.5 inch putty knife. So this is I think 200 grit, or this is 120 grit. This I'll be using by hand to smooth over the putty that we'll be using to fill the holes. And I have a 6-inch putty knife also. I'll show you, this is for the joints. This right here is just a regular, it's not an orbital sander, but it's a regular DA style sander. Got that from Walmart for $13. This is a pin nailer, a battery operated pin nailer. Then I also have regular tape measure, which you definitely will be needing, and some putty. This is a very small tub of drywall putty. You can use caulk also. This is just for the demonstration purposes. Of course, I'll need much more than this to do the whole house. And lastly, I have this chop saw made by DeWalt. This thing has literally built my whole home, so it is fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna catch you guys up on a project I've been working on for a while. I started this before we started doing the vlog, so unfortunately I can rip these back off the wall because I'm not going through that work again. But I can give you a brief description of how I did this, what I used, and why I chose to use a select pine. What I did was essentially took a 1x4 by 8 select pine board, and I decided to use that as my door molding. Now, the one thing about this I will say is it is not as easy as just getting a door molding and then cutting to fit, because number one, the boards can warp, and number two, there is some grain to the wood. So it's not perfect, but I saw this design in a hotel and I absolutely fell in love with it. It's simple, and it probably saved me about $600 to do the whole house, and when it's done, you'll never even know it was a select pine. So how I made these cuts, and like I said, I'm sorry I can't show you, but I'll show you exactly what I did. It's really simple. Measured from the floor up to this 90-degree angle where the door is. I spaced it to what I thought was good, and really about maybe 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch, depending on the clearances of the door. And I cut my 45 right at this 90-degree. I did that on every single door of the house. And then after I had all of my boards cut for the side, I went ahead and did the top. I did the top after because I can set these, I can put a pin nail, and then I can measure exactly what it needs to be and smack the top on, finish nailing, and then paint. You're gonna go from the very inside of the 45. You don't wanna be up here, you don't wanna be right here. Very inside of the 45, you wanna push your tape as tight as possible and pull it over to the inside of the other 45. Now this is 32 3/8 of an inch. Now it's really important that we have very exact measurements, so measure twice, cut once. Remember, from inside to inside, that is going to be where your cut starts. So here's our 1x4 select pine. As you can see, I already cut one piece off of here, so try to use as much as possible. So now our cut is going to be 32 3/8, I think I said. I'm probably going to cut it 32.5 to give myself a little bit of wiggle room, so I can always take more off. I can't put more back on. So just like inside, we're going to start on the very bottom of this angle, and we're going to come over here. You have to make sure you are cutting in the opposite direction of here. So this is going to be the base of your cut. This is going to be the top of your cut. So when you set your saw up, whether you use a miter box, a chop saw like this, a circular saw, whatever you may use, you want to make sure you're cutting away from the mark you made. It ended up being just perfect. You see how the angles match really nice and tight right there. So real quick, I'm going to sand my wood down so that way it's not as grainy, and then when you paint it, it doesn't look as rough. Now it's not going to be perfect like I said, but good sanding with some 120 grit will take most of the imperfections off. This is nice and dry. It's been sitting for a few hours. I can go ahead and touch it, handle it, nothing's gonna happen. So we're gonna go ahead and place this atop our back door. Just line it up the best we can. We will be caulking these seams, so it doesn't have to be perfect. On to the next step. So now we will be using our putty knives, our putty, and then also I like to have a wet rag handy just in case something falls on the floor or it gets where you don't want it. The putty comes up really nicely with a wet rag, just makes it easy. We're going to be filling all these little holes where the pin nailer hit. All this is going to be filled and then sanded so it's nice and flat. So I'll use my 1-inch knife. And just take a decent amount. You don't want it to be really heavy on the putty knife, but enough that you can work. Then we'll go back over later and scrape off our excess. It's really a very quick process. Wet rag. Now it's okay to leave some buildup because I can sand this. So I'm gonna leave it just like that and I'll sand it to the shape that I want. Next we're gonna move to this seam right here. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to kind of just cake it on there. Really cake it up there. And I'm gonna change over to my 6-inch putty knife. Pull that straight across, just like that.
Sir,
Yeah, no.
are you gonna clean up our floor?
Yeah.
Where's your wet rag?
Wet rag to the rescue. All right, guys, this is another door. This is the door going into our kitchen. And as you can see, I've already started the process of using the putty. And you can barely see it on film. But what I'm gonna go over here is just how I'm going to sand this. Now it's gonna be a light sanding using just a piece of folded paper and my hand. And as you go, just use your fingers to make sure it feels nice and smooth. And we're gonna do one more coat of paint over this, and then we'll make sure we fill the seam here with caulk so you can't see where it's touching the wall. And it's that simple. The last step, well, almost last step, is we're gonna go ahead and paint over the putty that we just put on there and sand it. What we're using here is Bare Ultra Stain Blocking All-in-One Paint and Primer. It's a semi-gloss. Works really good. We painted the whole house with this. Now I already pre-painted this, obviously, as you can tell, so I don't need to put a very heavy coat on. All right, so last step of the process, and this door is not finished, but while the putty is drying, I'm gonna go ahead and caulk the seams. That's probably one of like the more important parts of it because it takes away the gap in between the wall and then your door molding. So eliminating that makes it look like it's as tight, closest to the wall as physically possible, and and then there's no seam for your eye to be drawn to. Fill the groove with caulk, a nice line like so. Smooth as possible. Oh no. What are you doing? You helping?
What's up? Hi, baby girl.
Just drag my finger down that like so. Clear off the excess as I go. I scrub right down in that crack. Push as hard as you can, and that gets all the excess out, and then it pushes the caulk into the seam.